Hello, this is Mr. Tybox123, and in this video I'm going to be talking about some of the speculation and really trying to summarise some of the speculation about the iPad 2. So let's start off with the release date of the iPad 2. I think originally it was going to be coming out towards the end of April to keep in line with the end of April release date of the original iPad. But I think with the increase in some of the competition that's due out in and around the summertime, I think Apple are going to try and push this forward as much as possible and try and get the iPad 2 out maybe within the next 2 to 4 weeks. So there's been obviously a whole bunch of rumours and speculation about what is going to be included in the iPad 2. So I just wanted to run through with you some of the things which have been speculated about being in the iPad 2. Some of the things which are very realistic and some of the things which aren't, and also what in my opinion will be included in the iPad 2. So let's start off with the actual performance of the iPad. I think there's going to be an increase in RAM. I think there's going to be a dual core processor, or at least a faster processor, to increase the performance of the iPad. I also think that it's going to probably be thinner than the previous iPad and maybe even take on a slightly different shape. There's been a lot of speculation around the fact that it's going to look more like an iPhone 4 rather than having that sort of rounded back that the iPhone 3 and 3GS had, and I think that's probably quite realistic, that it's going to have a flat back and be a lot more like the iPhone 4 than the current iPad is. So also there's the speculation around whether or not it's going to be lighter. Now I think that they've got the weight of the iPad quite nice. I think it is nice to hold in your hand. I don't think it sort of kills your arms after a prolonged period of use. So I think the weight of the iPad is probably going to stay fairly similar to what it is now. Maybe even increase slightly because of an increased battery performance that they might be putting into the iPad 2. So there's also the mention of an anti-glare screen. That would certainly be an improvement on what we've got at the moment, because the screen does give off a whole load of glare. And in fact, talking about the screen for me really was the biggest disappointment with the initial iPad. Once you've used the iPhone 4 and then you start using the current iPad, you really realise that the screen on the iPad is not actually that great, and the screen on the iPhone 4 is absolutely fantastic. Which leads on to the rumours whereby people have been saying that there will be a Retina display in the iPad 2, or maybe even a display with double the resolution that we've got now. Now, I don't think they're going to be putting a Retina display in the iPad 2. I don't think they're going to be doubling the resolution, but I do think they're going to make some improvements around the screen so we get a much more high definition experience like we do on the iPhone 4. The main thing which I think will be included in the iPad 2 for 100% certainty is a front-facing camera. I have no idea why they didn't squeeze this into the original iPad. Maybe it's so as you go out and buy the iPad 2 when it gets released, but a front-facing camera is most definitely required in a tablet-based device, and all of its competition will have a front-facing camera, so I see no way possible that Apple will be able to leave out a front-facing camera from the iPad 2. There's also talk of there being a GSM plus CDMA version, which again I think is fairly likely with the recent release of the Verizon iPhone. I think they'll probably want it to be working on 4G networks as well. There's also the talk of it having a rear-facing camera. Now, me personally, I don't think it will have a rear-facing camera. I personally would not use a rear-facing camera on an iPad. I'm not sure if you would use a rear-facing camera. Try and let me know if you would, if you think it would be a good idea or not. And there's also a whole load of speculation on some more unrealistic things, in my opinion. So there's a lot of people who say that they might change the aspect ratio of the screen to give you a true 16:9 for watching movies. I don't think that's very realistic because of the issues that would be involved in redeveloping the applications. I think Apple have actually got the screen size of the iPad pretty much spot on. There's also talk of a touch-sensitive bezel. I don't think that that's realistic at all. I think that the rumours that are doing the rounds saying that the iPad will have complete gesture-based input is highly likely, and even the removal of the home button is going to be highly likely as well. So I think they're things that we're most definitely going to see in the next release of the iPad. There's also a lot of talk on the software end of things that there's going to be iLife for the iPad. I think that's highly likely as well. So really that's a summary of a lot of the things that people have speculated about being included in the iPad 2, some of the things which I think will be included in the iPad 2. If you think I'm wrong or you think I'm right, please do leave some feedback, let me know. I'd be very interested in reading that. Let me know if there's anything that I've missed as well. And I'd just quickly like to touch upon some of the competition which the iPad 2 is going to be seeing towards the summer months as well. We've had recently the specifications of the HP touchpad, and that's got very similar specifications to the iPad at the moment, but with a whole load of enhancements over and above the current iPad. So that will have a front-facing camera, it's going to have a very similar screen size and depth size to the current iPad. It's going to have a front-facing webcam, it's going to have audio by Beats, which is going to be very good indeed. Another thing which Apple need to improve upon on the iPad 2. It's going to have a gyro, it's going to have an accelerometer. So the HP touchpad is going to be most definitely some good competition for Apple over the summer months, and its WebOS also looks very good indeed. There's also the Playbook by RIM, that looks a very nice device, and although the size and dimensions are quite different to the iPad, again I think that's going to take a chunk out of the iPad's market. And even more recently we've had Samsung announce the Galaxy S and the Galaxy Tab, and they look absolutely fantastic as well. So over the summer months we're definitely going to see an increase in competition that iPad has not had over its existing months that we've already seen it in. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how that all turns out as well. Also, John Gruber from Daring Fireball has recently written an article saying that we might actually see a release of a second iPad in 2011, i.e. the iPad 3 or the iPad 2S or whatever it might be called, and he believes that that might be coming out in the sort of September time. So if that's true, we're going to see a whole more bunch of features and functionality that are going to be built into that product. And the idea of releasing the iPad in September would most definitely give Apple some very good sales over the Christmas time. So it'll be interesting to see if John Gruber's speculation is going to be true and we are going to see two iPads in 2011. In some terms it does seem quite unrealistic, in others it doesn't. So that's going to be interesting as well as to whether or not we see two iPads come out this year. I think if we do, it's more likely to be called like an iPad 2S or an iPad 2 Pro or something like that rather than an iPad 3. I think we'll probably see the iPad 3 around a year's time from the release of the iPad 2. But all in all, it's all going to be very interesting on the iPad front this year to see what comes out in the iPad 2. So like I say, if you've got any feedback or ideas around what you think might be in the iPad 2, whether you think I've got it completely wrong, I'd be very interested in reading what you've got to say, so please do leave a comment below. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.